Today, we become legends.
With the launch of open beta for Smite 2, we got our first brand new god in quite a while with ALADDIN, and he's a pretty complex, high skill cap design that has a lot of maximizing you can do, as well as very open-ended builds that can go in a lot of directions. This guide will cover everything you need to know to jump in with ALADDIN, so let's get started. Alright, so first up, ALADDIN's basics and playstyle. ALADDIN in Smite 2 is a highly mobile assassin-like god that deals magical damage. He's mostly close ranged and has melee basic attacks, but does have some ranged poke and plenty of ways to close the gap on his enemies through his high mobility and crazy ultimate. ALADDIN is mostly played as a jungler, but does have some fringe viability in the mid lane as well if you're looking to play him there, and he might even occasionally pop up in roles like solo and ADC, but he is mostly a jungler. Alright, moving on, let's cover all of ALADDIN's abilities, what they do, and the best ways to use them in fights. So first up, we have ALADDIN's passive, which is a bit of a two-parter. The first part is the Genie Lamp, which is an item that spawns in your inventory at game start, passively granting a percentage of all of the stats you gain from items. Activating the lamp with your normal active item buttons replaces your ability bar with 3 wishes. These wishes can be used once each per game and yield incredibly powerful effects. Wish for Wealth grants an immediate 250 gold plus an extra 100 gold for every kill or assist in 3 minutes. This can be used to finish an item to get a power spike advantage, but ideally should be used right before you're about to get a kill to guarantee at least 100 bonus gold with potential for more. Wish for Immortality instantly revives ALADDIN and gives him a massive movement speed bonus when leaving the base, allowing him to return to a fight quickly. This one's a little harder to use as you'll need a bit of good game sense to know if respawning immediately will actually have a solid impact on the match. As mentioned before, these wishes are one-time use, so you don't want to blow this wish just to go back to farming. The later in the game you use it, the more value it gets theoretically because respawn timers are longer, but you're mostly just looking for a situation where you can get back into a fight in time, and where doing so will have a big impact like an objective. Dying early in a fight that's likely to result in a fire giant push is a good example. You died early, so there's a good chance you can make it back before the fight is over, and the stakes for losing that fight are very high. The enemy team will likely take fire giant. Look for these situations and let this wish rip to turn the fight on its head. The final wish is a bit more simple. Wish for Power just resets all of your active cooldowns. And yes, this means all. Your abilities, including your ultimate, your active items, your genie charges, even your relic. Of course, the most value you can get out of this is right after you've dumped your kit, including your ult, burned your relic, and used any active items you have, but finding the perfect situation like this can be difficult. So much like the Immortality wish, just try to look for a situation where this cooldown reset will do something very meaningful for you. These wishes are one-time use, and even burning this wish to secure a kill but you might not have gotten otherwise often isn't enough. If that kill results in other things like an objective, several invades, a shutdown kill, etc., then it becomes more and more worth it. But in most matches, you're going to find a situation where you can get more than just one kill from using this. So keep a lookout and let this one rip at the perfect time. That's all the wishes though. In terms of the lamp itself, you do want to sell it once you have enough gold for a full item to replace it. It sells for no gold, so there's no reason to sell it until you need the item slot. But simply providing a percentage of all stats from other items is not worth the slot compared to getting a full item with a real passive or active. So you should be selling this once you need the slot and once you've used all of the wishes, as selling the lamp will revoke the access to the wishes. Alright, that was just part 1 of ALADDIN's passive though. The second part is much simpler. Every 15 seconds, ALADDIN gains a genie charge seen on his passive meter, and he can hold up to 2 at once. These charges are used to refire your basic abilities after using them for bonus effects, which are incredibly powerful. The 15-second cooldown is reduced by cooldown rate, and wishing for Power will immediately grant 2 genie charges back, in addition to resetting all your cooldowns. Okay, we're finally done with the passive. Let's move on to ALADDIN's regular abilities, starting with his 1 Kufic Invocation. ALADDIN charges up Kufic runes, starting as a shotgun blast of 5 runes, then coming together into a single wider line shot. At any point in this charge, ALADDIN can cancel the ability for no penalty, or can release the ability to fire out the runes in whatever shape they were currently making, dealing damage. Refiring the ability using a genie charge will recall the runes back to ALADDIN, dealing damage again on the way back. Firing the runes as a shotgun blast does increase the overall damage output very slightly, but not enough to matter most of the time, so usually you will only use the shotgun part of the ability if you want it to come out faster and don't have time to fully charge the line shot, such as if an enemy's about to CC you or jump away. Generally, you will be using the line shot far more than the shotgun blast. The line shot also makes recalling the runes much more consistent due to the larger hitbox and single damage hits, rather than trying to align all 5 runes from the shotgun on the recall. Also, for the single line, you can often double tap enemies you hit at max range by instantly recalling the runes for huge burst damage. This is of course course possible at closer ranges as well, but it's much easier to do at max range. Moving on to Aladdin's 2, Sultan's Grace, which is one of the most important abilities. This is a line dash that deals damage, increasing in damage to lower health enemies. The dash can be right-click cancelled at any time to stop it. Very useful for positioning yourself in melee range rather than overshooting the dash and being in a bad position to follow up. This is especially relevant when it comes to the genie refire action of the ability, which calls the genie to punch the ground 5 times around you, dealing very high total damage. Sticking to the enemy for these punches is critical for Aladdin's overall damage, as it literally is around half the damage of his total kit dump that comes from these punches. They're that strong. So it's extremely important to get these to land, which is why you'll want to get good at right-click cancelling the dash as soon as it connects with the enemy so as to not overshoot your target. Right-click cancel and immediately activate for the punches. This can also be done if you're already in melee range and just want the damage from the punches. You could just fire and instantly cancel the dash, then reactivate. You will go almost nowhere if done quickly, but still get access to the huge damage these punches provide. This might take a bit of practice, but getting the hang of this will make you far better at Aladdin in fights. Alright, moving on to the third ability though, which might be his coolest one yet, though the name doesn't really do it justice, that being Agile Run. Aladdin dashes forward. If he collides with a wall of any kind, he will run up or along the wall depending on your angle of attack. He can run on the wall for a short time before leaping a large distance off of the wall, dealing damage around him on landing. You can jump off the wall at any time during the run, but you will be forced off after the time expires, jumping to your last valid target location. Using the genie to refire this ability while wall running will cause the landing hit to knock up enemies. Very useful as an engager to confirm follow-up damage from a shotgun blast or instant dash cancel into punches. This ability is probably the best movement ability in the game, as you are completely untargetable while wall running, allowing you to completely avoid incoming abilities or buy time for your cooldowns or team to follow up. It also creates more distance than almost every movement ability in the game, making it extremely hard to chase or escape Aladdin, especially when combined with Sultan's Grace for some extra movement. This can also be a good tool to increase your jungle clear speed by using it to rotate around the jungle faster than most other junglers can, but be a little careful when doing this, as Aladdin is quite vulnerable to attack when this ability is on cooldown, so make sure you're being careful if you're invading with this or if you think you might get invaded. Alright, but finally, let's talk about Aladdin's absolutely crazy ultimate, Into the Lamp. Aladdin becomes CC immune and after a short windup throws the lamp in a straight line. This will stop at the first enemy god hit and pull both you and the enemy into the lamp, which is a separate arena completely isolated from the main battlefield. When hit, Aladdin and the target will restore up to a certain percentage of their health, which is dependent on ability rank. At rank 1, this is 60% for both, but as you rank the ability up, it will swing more and more in Aladdin's favor. At rank 5, it's restore up to 80% for Aladdin, but only 40% for the enemy. The same goes for cooldown rate. Both Aladdin and the enemy gain 50 cooldown rate while inside the lamp at rank 1, skewing more in Aladdin's favor every rank, until at rank 5 it's 70 cooldown rate for Aladdin and only 30 for the enemy. In addition, Aladdin also gains 30 up to 50 of both protections in the lamp, while the enemy gets no protections at all, regardless of rank. Once the ultimate hits, the lamp is left behind on the battlefield and both allies and enemies can use their interact key to enter the lamp. This action is interrupted by taking damage, but it's pretty quick, so you can often sneak in even while fighting an enemy. So while this fight may start as a 1v1, it can quickly spiral into a full-on brawl if many other players are around when you do it. However, you will always have the advantage, as other players will gain no extra stats in the lamp while you and the initial target get free stats. There is also a mechanic in place where you and the initial target take 25% less and deal 25% more damage to other targets that aren't combatants, making it even more in your favor. So this ultimate is absolutely crazy and it can quickly separate two team fights, which is in itself very useful. But the best way to use it is to take an enemy that you are confident you can beat in a 1v1. This doesn't always have to be the case. There are many different use cases for this ability, such as catching an enemy out of position when their team aren't close to join the fight, but your team are. Another great use for it is just as a reset, since Aladdin's basic ability cooldowns are reset upon entering the lamp and you heal up to 80% health, while the enemy only gets their cooldowns halved and restored to 40%. This is assuming max rank of the ability, of course, but this can be a crazy swing, so a great use of the lamp is to save it until you're getting low on health and have burned all your cooldowns, then bam, out of nowhere, you're back to 80% health with all of your cooldowns and genie charges, back in a good position to win that 1v1. That's not even all the applications of this ability though, as it is extremely open-ended in terms of the plays you can make, such as ulting the enemy mid laner or Sunder user so they can't secure Fire Giant, allowing your team to steal it, and many others. But discussing them all would make this video far too long, so just give it a go and see what you can create. It's a very open-ended ability with a myriad of use cases depending on the situation. But with all of his abilities and strategy covered, let's move into some builds for Aladdin. So first up, some general info on Aladdin's scalings and build paths. Aladdin is fairly unique in terms of his scaling. He's mixed, meaning he uses both strength and intelligence for his damage, and all of his abilities scale with both. The key difference is that the abilities themselves scale more heavily with intelligence, whereas the genie refire actions scale more heavily with strength. What I've generally found when playing Aladdin though is that he leans much more heavily on intelligence than he does on strength. There are reasons to build strength on him, mainly for his auto attacks, which as normal scale at 100% strength but only 20% int, and also for the genie punches when refiring his 2 specifically, which scale extremely hard with strength at 275%. However, I don't find myself basic attacking all that much on Aladdin, as he generally plays a very in and out playstyle that lends itself more to jumping in, dumping your kit, and either getting out or lamping someone. And he's generally too frail to be standing around basic attacking people for any substantial length of time. In terms of the genie punches, yes, 275% strength scaling is nuts, but they also scale at 125% int, which when you consider that int items have roughly 2 times as much int as strength items have strength, it's actually relatively even, and going for a full int build will only reduce your damage slightly on these punches while being far more beneficial for your other abilities. Keeping in mind that you can generally get around 2 times as much int per item slot as you can get strength, going for intelligence is definitely the better way for your ability damage, and I do think Aladdin is best used as an ability burst damage dealer. Not really an auto attacker, so there really isn't much reason to go strength compared to intelligence on him in my opinion. That being said, if you really want a certain stat, passive, or active effect from a strength item, you won't lose much damage by doing so, as he does still scale pretty damn well with strength, so your build options are very wide open with this guy. Alright, so with that general stuff out of the way, let's jump into the builds I use for Aladdin in jungle, as well as some other items you can sub in if you want or need them. Keep in mind these builds are meta for patch OB1 though. If you're watching this video a few patches down the line, some of the meta items might have changed, but hopefully that lengthy preamble explaining why I build this way will help you creating your own build using the best items at the time you're watching this. But without further ado, here are the builds. So I have 2 builds here, as I like both and they offer different advantages. The double stacking build utilizes Transcendence and Book of Thoth, as they both stack mana and synergize very well with each other to provide the highest total strength and int from 2 items in the game. Since Aladdin uses both well, this is amazing but slow to get online. Aladdin's early game is already a little bit weak, but if you can get through the first 10 minutes with this build, you'll delete everything in sight come late game. You've got a little bit of cooldown rate through Soul Gem, Gem of Focus, and Bumper Spear as well, plenty of percent pen through Obsidian Shard and Rod of Tahuti, and of course Tahuti provides that big intelligence spike through its passive. The second build is much less greedy and it comes online a lot faster, and specs more into movement speed and cooldown than into raw power stats. You'll hit a bit less hard with this build, but you'll be a lot more mobile and have abilities up more often. The combination of Doom Gem of Focus, and Teko Kagi all providing movement speed means you can stick to people pretty much indefinitely when combined with Aladdin's already high mobility, and rushing Doom instead of double stacking means you can get active a lot earlier in the match and compensate for Aladdin's weaker early game a bit better. This build has a total of 105 cooldown rate, equivalent to 51% cooldown reduction, compared to the first build only having 55, equivalent to 34% cooldown reduction. Both of these builds will work amazing, so just pick which one you prefer. Get online faster, be more mobile, and have abilities up more often, or get online slower but hit like an absolute truck in the mid to late game. Take your pick. Also, I'll quickly mention that I don't think Aladdin works very well as a bruiser or tank. That might seem obvious, but some people will still want to try it. I think it can be a lot of fun, but he does lack the crowd control and innate sustain to work as a bruiser, and is much better utilized with a full damage build in my opinion. Though if you feel you need a little extra bulk or a certain active effect like beads or Cersei's Hexstone, you can slot in one tank or bruiser item somewhere in the build and still do good damage. I just wouldn't recommend going full tank or bruiser on him. But that's it for Aladdin. Hopefully you are now armed with the knowledge to obliterate everyone on the battleground. If this guide was helpful for you, don't forget to drop a like before you leave, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.